Hi, this is Lisa Dolly. I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar series on innovations in game-based learning, hosted by the Mighty program at the UNC School of Education. And we're very excited, Beatrix and I, to be hosting the very infamous, amazing, wonderful Peggy Sheehy, who I love and adore, and I'm so glad that you're with us tonight. So I'm going to turn you over. Oh, and welcome to our audience. If you have questions, feel free to back channel chat. There is a little Q&A box where questions will be pulled out, and then we can feed them to Peggy as they come up. So feel free to use that as we go. And I'm going to turn over to Beatrix to introduce us to Peggy.
Okay. Well, thanks, Lisa. So I just met Peggy today, and it's been a wild ride. I'm so excited for this talk. So currently, she's the designer and facilitator of EXCALIBUR, which is game design supporting STEAM. That's what she'll be talking about today. And she's also she's instructional designer, she's been a teacher, she's done a lot of stuff, and this weekend she will be giving a talk at Harvard, 3 talks in fact, for the brains, oh gosh, I'm gonna remember it. Learning in the Brain conference, and we wish her the best of luck with that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Peggy.
Thanks. Thank you for being here, folks. I know that there's lots of options to do at this hour of the day, some of which do not include listening to anything remotely connected to learning or education. But I hope you're in your jammies. I hope you have a glass of wine or some beverage of choice. And this is going to be different than, what a shock, Peggy's doing something different. Different than the normal webinar you're used to. It's not going to be stand and deliver. I'll yak at you for just a little while, and then I'm going to ask you to yak back. Because EXCALIBUR, half of it, 3/4 of it, lives in the realm of ideas. This is the first year I'm teaching it. So what I have mapped out, the curriculum I have mapped out, I will give you a link to all that. It's Creative Commons license. Take it, do with it what you want. Just give me attribution, please. But I said to my students, and I'm going to be jumping around a lot too, as is my nature. I said to my students, these are 8th grade students, and this is an elective, so they signed up for it. I said, I've never taught this before. I think I know how it should go, but you're the experts. So if we launch into something and you don't see the point, you need to say that. Or if you know of a better way to do it, you need to say that. So I expect a lot of discussions about, why are we doing it this way? We should be doing it this way. Because I know they know so much more than I do. I'm really not versed in a lot of the content that I'll be teaching, because I don't plan on teaching it. I plan on facilitating it. I plan on pointing them in the right direction, but not telling them what to see. That's a teacher plaque, isn't it? That should be a teacher plaque. A good teacher points you in the right direction, but doesn't tell you what to see. Yeah, I like that. Okay, anyway, I can't see chat, so I don't know if you're going, yep, she's drinking again, or whatever, but I'm just going to plow on through with the best of faith. Matt Farber is in the house. Matt, I'd like you to plug your book right now. The one I'm in, I don't care about the others. And we will talk about the tribe a little later on so that people have the opportunity to join us. And if I forget, Matt, please remind me to mention the tribe website.
He plugged the book and he gave you a thumbs up.
Good, thank you. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of death by PowerPoint. That's my Twitter handle. I was very creative. I was an early adapter, so well, what did I know? And do you know you can use 240 characters now, or 280? They doubled it, but only on certain devices. It doesn't work on your iPad yet. Yeah. So those are my certifications. I'm a certified library media specialist, instructional technologist, K-6 classroom teacher. And the way we got legitimized my teaching 8th grade kids was because STEAM sort of fell under the heading of instructional technology or library media. So, you know, happy, joy. And I have life is better with pointed ears because I believe it is. Those of you who know me will understand that. Play. The big dichotomy in education is that there's neuroscientists all over the world. There's reams of research that talk about how the brain is the most receptive to new ideas and concepts when it's in a play state. But education has play over here in this sweet little fluffy place. So it's over there with recreation and fun, and learning is over here with rigor and grit. And if I hear those words one more time, and never the two shall meet. But game designers get it. Game designers know that a well-designed game is playing to learn. That's all you're doing when you're playing a game. You're learning. You're learning the game. You're learning how to play the game. You're learning about your opponents. You're learning about the game engine. You're learning about how best to work things. When education catches up, I'll be the biggest champion shouting from the mountains. But in the meantime, we close our doors and we do what we need to do, don't we? Yes, we do. I'm assuming that most of you are teachers or educators. Hopefully there's some parents, board members, administrators, God forbid, decision makers, librarians, tech directors. I hope we have some kind of a representation, higher ed, K-12, because this is the it takes a village type of situation, as trite as that may sound. We really need to get everybody on board. And what's surprising to me is that the biggest champions I have now are my parents. Not my parents, God bless them, but my students' parents. Because even though they are from the generation that played video games or continue to play video games, they therefore are very opinionated about them. Some may think, what a waste of time. My brother played it all through college and blah, blah, blah. Or, yeah, I know the learning that happens in these games. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've experienced it. Everything I know about history, I know from Civ 5. I've heard both sides of the coin. But they become my champions because their children go home and talk about what they did in school today now. And their children go home and say, you know what's so cool? You know what I learned today? You know what I made today? You know what I did today? You know what we're going to do? They're excited again. They've taken ownership. I believe in the 3 A's, okay? I believe that the students should have agency, that the learning should be authentic, or as authentic as we can possibly make it in a school setting. And I believe that was the 3rd A, agency, authenticity, and I don't know, there's another one, but it's very similar to agency in terms of them having the right to design the learning in the way that works best for them. And any of you who are gamers, who's a gamer? Give me a Y or an N in the chat. I can't see it, but Lisa will give me a count.
1, 2. It looks like everybody.
Everybody's a gamer. Okay.
Everybody so far.
Because if you didn't say that you were a gamer, I would have contradicted you and taught you that you are. Because you may not play World of Warcraft every night with a guild, but you play Words with Friends. You play tennis. You play bridge. You play chess. You play. Everybody plays. We play. And lately what's been happening is play has become this guilty pleasure. Play has become this thing that we do in the intermissions of life, standing online at the grocery store and I've got Bejeweled going on, or I'm sitting in the dentist's waiting room and I'm having a couple of rounds of Clash Royale or whatever it is. We play. And now because of I'm going to use one of the little, you must say this in your presentation words, because of the ubiquitous nature of devices, that therefore of games, it's become something that is like second nature to many of us. Even any generation I can think of, elderly seniors always reverted to playing. Once they were retired, they were bingoing and canasting and mahjonging and bridging and what have you. So they got it. They understood it. But it was, now we can play. Now that work is over, now we can play. The little ones, if we let them, play is just what they do. It's intrinsic, it's inherent, it's their oxygen, it's their DNA. Let's play. Of course, we're trying to suck that joy away from them the minute they hit school and we hand them worksheets in kindergarten, but that's a soapbox for another day. So this book right here, Marc Prensky. Marc is a very brilliant man. He has a pedigree of, Harvard and MIT and all sorts of things. But what I love about Marc's writing is that you can hand it to a layperson and their eyelids won't bleed from footnotes and academies. The book that I hand the parent who's on the fence, or the parent who's a non-believer, or the parent who's just disenfranchised with the whole concept is Don't Bother Me, Mom, I'm Learning. Because in very simple terms, it explains the value and what kids are actually learning. And if you don't get that, sit down next to a kid when they're playing a video game or any game. I don't care if they're playing D&D on a board table or if they're playing Parcheesi. Ask them what they're doing. And they'll probably be in flow, and you'll probably be irritating them, and they'll probably give you a real short answer, but then say, no, I really need to understand, what are you doing and why? And my goodness, what happens then when you see this non-participatory kid in school all of a sudden articulate what they're doing and what they're learning and why they're doing it. And it's such an eye-opener. It's such a light bulb going off, like, oh, well, why will they talk at length about this and in such an informed manner when I can't get them to explain a single thing they learned in bio this year? Well, your teachers, you know why. Because they're sitting in bio going, except for the few pre-med kids, they're going, why do I need to know this? When am I going to use this in my life? What a waste of my time. I know darn well that if I got online right now, and that's the world they live in. So we need to make their education relevant to them. Somewhere along the line, and Marc is a big proponent of this. I mean, Marc and I do butt heads on some things, but he's a big proponent of, let's rethink what we teach. Like, do we need to teach algebra to everyone? Do we need to teach cursive writing? How about we put it in art class and call it calligraphy? I mean, just, let's re-examine it. We're still teaching this curriculum. I'm not a full-on proponent of, if you can Google it, you shouldn't teach it, because that's just stupid. But I am a proponent of, they really don't need to memorize all these facts unless they're foundational to something. Otherwise, they can Google them. And let's instead take that precious, valuable time that we have them in front of us and learn how to ask harder questions and learn how to tackle more intricate concepts and learn how to wrap around a really good argument and learn how to hear another point of view, consider that point of view, and then perhaps change your mind or not. So anyway, Marc is the guy. He's my go-to guy for the uninitiated, adult or administrator, either one. This is the guy. You don't throw people into this den just right away. But if you are an educator who's already pretty well versed in games, or you get it and you've seen it happening, you've seen the kids play, you've seen the engagement, you've seen the ownership, this is the guy you read, because he's going to cross your T's and dot your I's for you, Jim G. Jim tells a great story. He and his wife, I think his wife must have been a bit younger. They had a young son, and Jim was a little bit more advanced in age than you'd expect a 3-year-old's father to be. And being the good dad, Jim took his son to the game store to buy a new video game. And now Jim is a linguist. His 14,000 letters after his name all have to do with his PhD in linguistics. And he was at University of Arizona. I think he still is. And he tells a story like, so I figured, well, my son was picking out, a game appropriate for his age. I'd look and maybe I should buy a game. All my students play these games. So he picked out a game, and he tells the story that he goes home and he inserts the game and starts to install it, and then sits back and opens the manual to the game. And this doctor of linguistics said, I couldn't make heads or tails of this manual. I was looking up words. I didn't know what they meant. I was so frustrated. He said, finally, I just put it down in disgust. But, I couldn't return the game. I had already installed the game. So I figured, well, let me just see what happens. And this is very telling, this next sentence. 4 hours later, when he stopped playing, he returned to the manual, and it all made sense. And Jim uses that as an analogy for education in terms of that's what we do. We hand them the manual without letting them play the game. So we hand them the information without the experiential, situational component so that they actually can grasp what's in the manual. I mean, science, I think, is the only person who's not quite the culprit. And of course, there's pockets of brilliance hopefully in every school, but in the schools I visited. But in general, we're still saying, here's the information, figure it out. So that's not what this is about, though, is it? I have a vested personal interest in this particular book. Matt, I know you're laughing. Greg Toppo is the education journalist for the newspaper USA Today. And about 6 years ago, Greg showed up at my school. I was still the librarian at the time. And he basically walked into the library and said, I'm writing a book on games. I hear you do some stuff with World of Warcraft. Would you mind if I observed? I said, fine. Well, for the next 4 years, Greg was in my building probably twice a month, talking to the kids, watching the kids, interviewing the kids. Then the kids would leave and he'd talk to me about it. And he really worked hard at understanding and getting a very clear, accurate picture. And then when I made the transition back to the classroom, Greg made the transition with me. He came to my back to school night. He listened to me talk to the parents. He was really quite thorough. And then one day he said to me, I have a deadline. The book's got to be ready, and I have a working title. And I said, great. What is it? And he said, well, it's from one of your kids. The game believes in you. I said, really? Okay. That could mean a lot of things. And he explained it to me, and I won't spoil it. I'll let you figure it out when you read the book if you haven't. Anyway, the work that we do here in the Epic Learning Center, the work I do with Ramapo Central, which is now called Suffern Central, by the way, heads up. We changed our name for reasons which shall become unknown to anybody who cares. We needed to disenfranchise ourselves from a nearby district that was very problematic. So we changed our name to Suffern Central School District. But Greg basically wrote chapter 7 about the work that we do here and got it right. And the fabulous thing about this book is that chapter 7, which is about me, is not the best chapter. That's how good the book is. I read the book and went, wow, I'm not even the best chapter. This is a great book. And if you look at the Amazon reviews, somebody wrote, this is the best book I've read since Jim G's What Video Games Have to Teach Us About Learning and Literacy. And the very next review was Jim G saying, actually, this is a better book than mine, and Greg is a better writer. So that to me was like, you've reached the mountain, the highest pinnacle. So I'm trying to let you know what some of the influences I had, because alert the press, I'm not exactly of the age most associated with video games. So I turned to a lot of experts when I was trying to sort it all out. But these are really the experts. These are the real experts. And yes, I have permission, librarians. I have permission for these kids to be on the internet. Anytime I'm doing a presentation, anytime I'm working out a curriculum, anytime I'm doing anything of value, I fly it by the kids first. I say, how's this? What's missing? What could be better? I get their feedback. Or how can I say this better? I don't know how to say this. And they help me out. And they're amazing. Ben Zander, who wrote the book, The Art of Possibility. He wrote it with his wife. Ben is the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic. And he's also a very dynamic, inspirational keynote speaker. And I've seen Ben many times speak, and he's always great. So don't miss him if you have an opportunity. But he does have a great TED Talk out. But he tells a story about how he looks at his audience and he says, I know you're getting what I'm talking about. I know you're with me. I can tell you're right there because your eyes are shining. And that's my litmus test. That's my meter. If your eyes are shining, you're with me. And think about it. Think about shining eyes. And then he said something I'll never forget. And I repeat it every opportunity I get. He said, if your students' eyes are not shining, you need to ask, who am I being that my students' eyes are not shining? Now, what does this have to do with STEAM and Excalibur and gaming? And here's what it has to do. Not every child is going to come in and think they died and went to heaven when you tell them that they're going to get to play video games in class. In fact, out of the 25 that walk in on the first day of school, about 6 of them, I'd say 18, 19, look around my classroom, which is full of Yogi-Bo beanbags and exercise balls and colored stools that spin and standing computers and sitting computers and happy, happy, joy, joy. And 18 of 25 walk in and just, look at the posters on the wall and they're like, yes, this is it. Yeah. But the rest of them look around. And I see where is my textbook? Where are my worksheets? I know how to do that. I know how to get an A that way. And I blew it the first year. I was back in the classroom because I was like, no. You're going to try something different this year. We're going to learn this way. Oh my gosh, in hindsight, I was perpetuating the exact thing I was fighting against, saying this is how you're going to learn, everybody. So the following year, I ate my humble pie. And when those 6 walked in and got the, what's going on? This is different. I don't know if I like this. I said, if you'd be more comfortable learning in a traditional way, I have that all set up for you. And you could see them literally exhale and relax. And about 4 weeks later, inevitably, they come to me and say, I'd like to try the game. But, I'd say by December, I didn't have anybody who didn't want to do it the other way, but it was their choice. And that's what was different. The other thing I should mention is, in terms of shining eyes, is if you want those parents to be your champion, bring them in. Don't leave them home. So once a month, I have a parent night. And they come in and they're allowed to bring their students, but they don't have to. But the students are taught to put their hands behind their back. They are only allowed to instruct with words, and they're never allowed to be mouse grabbers. And the parents do exactly what the children do. So maybe they're logging in and creating a character in World of Warcraft and slaying some orcs. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're doing Civ 5. Maybe they're working with a piece of software called Membean, but they're doing whatever their children do so that they see the learning. It's not in the realm of ideas. They see the learning. And I do this stuff too. I'm a bit of a grammar Nazi, and I do it, but I do it in the context of the game, because the learners are invested, so they actually care. Because we know this. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. These students are different. Their DNA is different. They didn't come into technology. They were born into technology. They didn't adapt it or adopt it. It's their oxygen. It was always there. It's always a part of them. And I was on the fence with is it too much screen time? Are they not learning how to socialize? And guess what? You know what? They're as social as they need to be. Their socialization is different. They're not isolated. They're not sitting in a basement eating Cheetos. They're just, it's different. And we better let them be what they need to be and bring it into school and teach it with empathy and wisdom instead of putting it out there and keeping the traditional school rigor grit in here. And therefore we will be useless and irrelevant, and they will learn everything they need to learn outside of school without the added benefit of an adult with some experience, some wisdom, and modeling empathy. Lots of soapboxes. All right, so I always like to do this. Is this student learning? I'm imagining some yeses. I always like to say, what are they learning then? If they're learning, what are they learning? I had one wise guy science teacher go, surface tension. This was a magazine cover in Australia where they did an interview, and they gave me that moniker of the godmother of educational gaming. And believe me, I've already received ample crapola for it. You know, everybody, Matt's in the audience right now, like laughing his head off. But the reason I brought it up is they're ready for this in Australia. They're ready for this in New Zealand. They're doing this in Finland, in Japan, in England, and we, you know, the country that produces the Steve Jobs of the world, we're dragging our feet saying, no, gaming is play and it's over there and it, you know, it's fluffy and pink and school is learning and rigorous. So Excalibur, this is the way it came about. As I said earlier, I was teaching 6th grade humanities. And humanities in our school is a mashup of English language arts and social studies, or social science, we call it. But I was not going to go back into the classroom and, you know, put my kids in rows and hand them out worksheets. And, you know, I was going to figure out how to bring what I've been doing as an after-school program with WOW in School, which was developed by Lucas Gillespie in, well, he's not Pender County anymore. He's somewhere in North Carolina. Lisa, you can put that in the chat. You know his new district. And I took all the work that Lucas and his lead teacher, Craig Lawson, did, and I adapted it for 6th grade and aligned it to the expletive standard, Common Core standards. And therefore, I could basically point to my curriculum and say, this will stand up to any number 2 pencil Scantron rigor you want to throw at it. But I had to do the back end. I had to do the work behind the scenes. And my kids did better on all the standardized tests. Not like roaring better, but better. We took random samples, my boss and I, my principal, and they were always at least, you know, 0.5 or more better. Am I a better teacher? Absolutely not. I have colleagues in this building who are just brilliant and creative and dedicated. But my kids wanted to be here. My kids were invested. My kids felt like it was their choice. And because of a tool that Lisa created, Lisa Dolly, Dr. Dolly and Dr. Chris Haskell had created it back at Boise State. It's a quest-based course management system. So it's a Blackboard designed for gaming and quests. Because my stuff gets delivered there, my kids never miss a beat. I can go to Australia and do a keynote and be away for a week, or go to South by and do a presentation. And as long as I can log into the internet, my kids are there and their work is there and they feel so independent and so accomplished. So that's kind of cool too. Not that we don't have our face-to-face, but our face-to-face is not going over last night's questions at the end of the chapter. Our face-to-face is asking hard questions and having debate and that kind of stuff. So the WOW in School program used World of Warcraft and Civ 5 for the 6th grade curriculum, which was English language arts and ancient civilizations. With World of Warcraft, for those of you who are not familiar, it has a really, really rich, complex backstory. I mean, more complex than the Iliad or the Odyssey, or so it was a no-brainer for English language arts. It's actually written on a 10th grade reading level, and you cannot advance without reading. So I could use it for everything. I could teach anything under the English language arts moniker inside World of Warcraft. But I couldn't quite figure out an authentic way to teach the ancient civilization, which is why I went and found another game, Civ 5. Now, Civ 5, those of you who know it, a lot of it is accurate, a lot of it is not. So whenever they had a session in Civ 5, the kids had to, and they're always writing, but the kids had to then select something that they encountered that day and cross-reference, using the internet, cross-reference the information to determine whether or not it was accurate. If it was inaccurate, they had to explain what the accurate rendition was. And if it was accurate, they had to give their sources. So all sorts of stuff being learned there. In terms of the reading, writing part, we are constantly, anything we do, we leave the last 15 minutes of class to write about it. Write a reflection, write a critique, write a review, write a letter to the game designer, write a letter to the character in the game, whatever. So, constantly, all of a sudden, the kids are writing and they care about what they're writing, and don't end your sentence in a preposition. And their other teachers are going, how do you get that out of them? It's not magic. I have no silver bullet. I just gave them something to care about. So what I'd like to do now is bring you out to another quote from Marc, saying kids have hypertext minds, that play is powerful. Biscaglia is the guy that said, I don't know why educators and parents can't get this when game designers have it. Game designers know how to keep them coming back. And in some cases pay money to do it because they've learned the psychology of happiness. They've learned that sweet spot, not too hard, not too easy, because that's the kiss of death. There's another group of books. These slides will all be available to you, so you don't worry about anything now. You don't need to screenshot or anything. But Seymour Papert, dear Seymour Papert, who we unfortunately lost last year, he was the creator of the logo language. And he wrote a book ages ago, I think it was in the late 60s, early 70s, called The Children's Machine, where he said that's what computers should be. They should be for the kids. But Seymour, when they were playtesting the language, the logo language, with the little turtle, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it was Seymour and Cynthia Solomon and Marvin Minsky. The three of them created it when they were like youngins at MIT. And they had kids coming in to play test it. They'd go into schools and one class would come in and the other would come out. And as a class was leaving, naturally, how it happens. The kids coming in were like, how is it? What was it? What was it? And Seymour said he overheard one kid say, oh, it was hard, but it was fun. It was hard fun. And, Seymour just loved that because that's what we want. We want hard fun. We don't want whimsical, nonsensical play for learning purposes. We want play that has a purpose. And I'm almost going in a place I don't like, so I'm going to stop there. This is my classroom. This is the EPIC Learning Studio. EPIC stands for Every Person is Counted. This year's classes have not determined what their acronym is going to be for EPIC, but that was last year's. Every person is counted. So that's our circle of safety right there. Those are Yogi bows. And then you can see the classroom itself. The perimeter is lined with, I am spoiled rotten, brand new IMAX. The orange chairs are the only furniture I have, and they're on wheels. If the kids actually need to write hard copy, they have clipboards. I have a bin full of clipboards. And the room is purple and yellow. I thought those were gender neutral colors that were happy. I'd say it's a happy place. What you're not seeing here is on the opposite side of the room. All the computers are standing height. I was honored to have received a fellowship to work one summer at Filament Games, the educational game design company. They're out on the West Coast. They're the ones that created the iCivic suite with Sandra Day O'Connor and Jim G. Anyway, I went in there. I don't mind telling you. I went in there ready to school these people. I was going to tell them what it was, where it was at, and what they needed to do. And right? What happened? I got so schooled. And I remember thinking, I need to shut up and listen because these people are really smart and they know what they're doing. And I finally understood why these educational game design companies weren't putting out Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and even Lord of the Rings online. They had to make money, but they have ethics, and they were trying not to insult kids. They were trying to find that balance, that sweet spot. And I have to say that Filament Games does it better than any other educational company I've personally encountered. And I knew this was true because out of the 50 or 60 young people, 20 somethings, I think the oldest person there was like 35, 36, Dan White. If Dan's hearing this and he's 32, I'm really sorry. But not only did the animator have to be an expert animator and the sound effects person be expert at their skill, and the narrative had to be written, and you get my point. But they had to be versed in whatever the subject of the game was. So if they were doing a game on plant chromosomes, they were all studying plant chromosomes. They all had books and were sharing about it and having Scrum and sprints meetings about it, and because that had to be accurate, and then they could take that new information and apply it to their skill, the skill that they brought to the table. And it was so impressive. And what was really cool is the first time we sat down for a Scrum, it was in a little nook where there was line of bookshelves, and I being the librarian, started looking at the books, and it was like, I have that one, I have that one, I have that one, I have that one, I have that one. Oh, I should get that one. It was like they understood pedagogy. They hired real teachers over the summer, and they sucked your brain dry. How would this work in the classroom? What's going to happen when the bell rings? Should we write a curriculum, or should we leave it up to a teacher? Should we write a bare bones curriculum and let the teacher adjust it? I mean, they really wanted to do it right. And I shout their names from the mountains. When I'm in a conference, I always say I scan the program for anything having to do with games, game design, games in the classroom. And if it's a teacher that's presenting, I go in and I sit in the back row. And the minute the inevitable PowerPoint Jeopardy slide comes up, I quietly get up and leave, because at least they're on their way. But if it's a corporate entity, I'm in the right front row seat. I've seen them wince when I walk in. And as soon as which they inevitably do, make it evident that they haven't a clue what actually transpires in a real classroom, I put my hand up. And now I'm right up front. They can't ignore me. One guy said, "Will you hold your question?" I said, "No." You get to a certain age, and and so they acknowledge me, yes, and I just ask the same question all the time. It's come to be known as the Sheehy Inquisition. Who are the educators on your staff informing your design? You're a educational game design company, correct? Yes. So who are the educators on your staff informing your design? And every once in a while I get that, well, Sally used to be a teacher. Used to be a teacher? Used to be a teacher? No. I don't want to hear that. Or are you basing everything on the way it was when you went to school, which means you're perpetuating everything that's wrong with education? So this is what's fermenting in my head. And then I'm in Filament Games, and I'm watching these young people, and I'm watching how a real game design studio works. And I'm remembering the parents that come up to my desk in June every year and say, with tears in their eyes, what about next year? There's nothing. There's nothing for my kid next year. Everything is back to tradition, back to playing school. So I have these things in my head. And I had about 2 months, and I wrote a curriculum for something I called EXCALIBUR. I was basically on an overseas app. I could talk to New Zealand, where my partner in crime has moved, and working out, like, should it be EXCALIBUR? Should it be? So EXCALIBUR stands for explore, create, analyze, learn, iterate, break, understand, reflect. And normally the first slide I put up has EXCALIBUR spelled with a U-R and with an E-R. And then the next page is from Webster's Dictionary, which explains that they're both acceptable. And one was more popular during the Middle Ages and one was blah, blah, blah. So I say to the audience then, so you don't have to spend the next 15 minutes Googling it. There it is, because they would. Let's look at all the buzzwords. Gamification, game-based learning. Woo, saved on the stage, guide on the side. That one's kind of old now. Sputnik moment, future-proofing, college and career ready, disruptive technology, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read to you. But what's the one now? What's the new one? Coding. Let's all get on the coding bandwagon. So I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, I can make this work for me. Because guess what? When you go to a place where they are actually coding, they don't call it coding, they call it programming. They program things. So I took the fact that a well-designed game is the result of someone who wrote a narrative, someone who did animation, someone who drew characters, someone who designed fashion, someone who did hair, someone who did sound effects, someone who did quality assurance, someone who built a website in order to some kind of an aggregator in order to get it out there. And the list goes on and on and on. It's not just the kid in the basement in the black t-shirt coding. Okay. And I thought those are real skills. And that's when it all came together for me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create a continuum, a 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade course. And I did. And I just, I took the bare bones bullets and I brought it to my boss and he looked at it and he said, oh, this is great. But, the butt was coming. But I can't fit this into their schedule. There's no room in a 6th grade schedule for anything like this. And in fact, there's no room in 7th grade. But 8th grade, could you condense this into 1 year and make it an elective for 8th grade? And I said, I can do that. So that's what we did. And I divided it into 3. Let me just see if there's anything here. Oh, the C word. So for the rest of the time, I'd just like you to put on those teacher lenses and remember how the gamer credo works. The optimist says the glass is half full. The pessimist, it's half empty. The gamer says, I drink it. What happens? And before we move into the next piece and I get to start to talk to you, don't let it be a guilty pleasure. Do not make excuses if you play in your workplace, whether it be a classroom or a university or what. You do not have to make excuses. It is legitimate. It is substantial. Do a little research, get some of the, I'll get it for you this weekend in Boston when I speak to a room full of neuroscientists. Okay, so that's the end of that. Now let's go over here. Lisa, just give me a heads up if this doesn't show up properly, but I think I have the way to do it. Hi, guys.
Okay.
I think I have it down to a science now. So what I'm going to do is get my mouse to work. There we go. New mouse. Oh my gosh. Did she turn it off? There it is. There we go. So I'm going to hit screen. Need technology grand. Screen. And I'm going to now take, this is going to get minimized. This is going to get brought up. And I'm going to pick this and say share. Did it work? Did it work?
I'm waiting. Hold on. I see Excalibur.
That's what I wanted you to say.
Okay.
Okay. So, can you see the URL? I'll paste it into the chat. This is the website. It's still a work in progress. So you can go to it on your own.
Yeah, we've got the URL.
Okay. So as I said, this really is an acronym with explore, create, analyze, learn, iterate, break, understand, reflect, dare to reach for it is our slogan. And the front page is just an overview of what is it, what is STEAM, why video games. I don't have to tell you guys if you're here that the game design industry or the video game industry is the fastest growing, burgeoning moneymaker on the planet. In the entertainment industry, it has surpassed everything else. Fact. It has surpassed movies, music, live performance, gambling. It has beat it all out, and it's not going away. People used to think it was just a stage and it'll go away, and it's like a hula hoop or a pogo stick. And So that front page is basically just a soft sell. It's just a gentle little, so here's why we're doing this, and I'll let you read it at your own leisure. But down below we have the course itself, and this is the part that I worked out those 2 months over the summer. I said, okay, these were going to be 3 years, but now they're 3 units. The arcade is the first unit, and the purpose of the arcade is there's actually several, but the overarching purpose is to learn how to put a different lens on when you play a game. Like, you've played Call of Duty a million times. This time you're putting a lens of a designer on, and you're being analytical, and you're dissecting it, and then you're writing a review. And each time you play, and I give them 20-minute increments to play. So in my room we have 2 Xboxes, 2 PlayStations, 30 iMacs, which are PC capable. The 4 consoles have big screens, and then I have a big giant old TV, with Wii U on it. So they basically go down a list of compiled games. Did I go out and buy the games? Nope. They brought them in. I said, don't bring anything that you'll be devastated if you don't get back, because we do know things grow little legs sometimes, but put your name on it with a permanent marker. I generated a list of all the games that we'd be using. The only thing that didn't come in that I wouldn't have let in if it did was GTA. Everything else, I didn't limit it to T for teen or anything else. I compiled a list of those games. I sent it home to the families. I said, please, these are the games I intend to be using. If there's any you don't want your child to use, put a check mark next to it, and I'll see to it that they don't play that game. Nobody checked anything because they have them all at home. So that was the first hurdle. Now, so I had to model how to play something with a different mindset, with a different lens. I, being most familiar with World of Warcraft, I modeled that. So I rolled a human and brought them into Elwyn Forest. And one of the first quests is they have to kill a bunch of these gray wolves and collect their pelts. And as I was playing it on the big screen, I was doing I was thinking aloud. And I was like, okay, I got one, yay. Okay, why didn't one drop that time? Let me try this one over here. Well, that didn't drop one either. Oh, this one over here. Oh, that one dropped one. Oh, so maybe they have to be running. Maybe they have to be sitting. Let me try running. No. Yes. No. Yep. And each time it's a yes, what is it? It's a little squirt of dopamine. So you want to try it again. But if it was a no, it would be, this game sucks. I'm not playing. Wouldn't it? Or if it was yes, it would be, this game sucks. Too easy. I'm not playing it. My little brother can have it. So the sociologists and the psychologists who are on staff at Blizzard Entertainment, where I've been and I've met them, they know the science of happiness. They know the sweet spot. How many times can we make them do this before it's too frustrating? The beautiful thing is, when you're playing one of these games, you're never going to be presented with a challenge that you are not capable of. And Jane McGonigal talks about that all the time. It's within your realm of competence. You might not get it the first time, because that would be dull anyway. You might need to go get help to get it. You might need more information to get it, but there it is. So that first quarter, I go back and forth with what I call them. Sometimes I call them topics, sometimes I call them units, but the first of the 3, the arcade, they're playing all sorts of genres. And the only thing they have to do is, on the big sheet that's on the wall, they have to put their name. They have to say what aspect of the game design process they are going to be looking at while they play. So are they going to be looking at playability? Are they going to be looking at responsiveness? Are they going to be looking at sound, gratuitous violence? Because they're also going to have to rate games later on. Like, is the rating accurate? Would you have rated it this? Why and why not? So they're writing. All right. They play as many games as they can. We're just wrapping up this part right now. So that's since September. We start to look at the history of games in a real easy way. Crash course video games. They're great and they're very informative. So, that's the only thing they do for homework is, I'll assign one of the crash course games, which are usually 20 minutes, something like that. They're going to start looking at what is systems thinking. We start a taxonomy of terminology, game design terminology, computer science terminology, and lead speech, so that we have a common language. I'm also really big on explaining to them when lead speech is appropriate and when it is not. If they're in an academic setting, you better capitalize that pronoun I, and you better put punctuation at the end of the sentence, and I better not see any of these lead speech abbreviations. Okay. They're going to be encouraged to communicate and think clearly and explain their reasoning clearly in written communication and in live presentations. Because we all know that live presentation thing is probably the most stressful thing on the planet for people, other than, I think, divorce and buying a house. So that's the first unit. And the overarching question is, hey, I'm finding out that this isn't just the guys in black t-shirts in the basement coding. This is actually pretty complex. There's a lot of different jobs involved. There's a lot of different skills involved. Which one appeals to me? So they're starting to identify their affinities. All right. The next unit is called the workshop. We've just about began the workshop. And in the workshop, they're going to be introduced by getting an overview only. I'm not teaching it. Of 4 different game design softwares. I'm introducing to them Game Salad, Game Star Mechanic, Game Fruit, which is out of New Zealand, and Unity. Now, am I going to sit down and teach them Unity? No. But I am going to say, here's the tutorials. You get an overview of each one, about 2 weeks where they dabble with each one. And then they decide which one they're going to own and dig deep. Then they pitch their first pitch. They give their first pitch for a game design. It's 1 minute long. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to ask Matt Farber and Steve Isaacs and some of my other cronies to come in here and be investors and give feedback on their pitches instead of just me or peer feedback. Anyone who's interested and is in the New York area, let me know. That would be great. Then after their pitch, they're going to get constructive feedback. They become critical friends. They're going to go build their game with whichever software they decided upon. They're going to build their game. They're going to build it for iOS, for Android, whatever they want. I don't care. Then they're going to play each other's games and give each other feedback. I'm tired. Are you? I'm already exhausted. Then, again, they're looking at that overarching, for which aspect am I feeling an affinity? Which part lights me up? Which part rings my chimes? If I could do any of these things, which one would it be? And I already have it pegged. I already know who's going to want to program, who's going to want to draw, who's going to want to do the sound, but I'm going to let them find out for themselves. We culminate the unit then by playing each other's games and continue to explore the history, continue to contribute to the taxonomy. It's okay. I'm on a webinar, but they don't care if you're working. My lovely custodian is here cleaning my classroom, and he's the best. Then we move into the third and final unit or section, which is called the company. And it is just that. They become a company, one unit, one entity. There can only be one. This part, the way I have it designed at a lot of questions. What's the name of your company? Do you have a tagline? Nike, just do it. Burger King, have it your way. Do you need that? If so, you have a day or two to come up with it. What are the roles that you need in your company? Do you need hierarchy? Do you need a CEO, a CFO, ABC? Do you need those things? Who's in charge? Who's going to handle finances? Who's going to make the ultimate decisions when a hard decision needs to be made? So they're going to sort that out. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm not in it. I'm out of it. I'm just going to stand here and supervise like don't let anybody hurt each other. Then they have about a week and a half to sit down with a team or alone. Some people still prefer to work alone and develop another pitch for the big game. And they will deliver. That can be a 3-minute pitch. and then the company will vote on one. There can only be one. Once the company has determined the one, they will then hopefully rotate through the jobs that they have identified as those for which they feel an affinity. Like, I think what I'd like to do is I definitely want to draw the characters, and maybe I'm going to try animation. And maybe I'll help Johnny out over here with sound, because that's kind of neat too. Hopefully the way in the realm of ideas, they'll have identified by then. Otherwise, they're going to just rotate through some stuff, and maybe they'll like it, maybe they won't, but it's their job to develop that affinity and claim it, own it.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How long is this class to cover the 3 components?
It's all year. It's a whole year long, and it's
okay.
Every other day for 50 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
They come from me to gym the next day, back to me to PE the next day. Yeah. But I have them for the whole year. I need to hustle. I didn't want to be talking this long, but let me just get the rest of it out. So in the company, in that last and final stage, after they do the research and planning, they're going to pitch the idea. They're going to choose one. And then there's going to be people who are going to be in charge of quality assurance. They're going to be in charge of, well, who's our market? Do we want this to be an M-rated game? Is that limiting the market or expanding the market? Do we want it to appeal to 14-year-old boys have boobage, or do we want to maybe transcend that and have it appeal to everyone and like put clothes on them? I'll get back to the gender thing in a second, but we're going to utilize the Scrum Framework that I learned when I worked at Filament, which is basically a project management method. It's very agile and it's very transparent. It's you have a meeting, a 5-minute meeting when you first get together, and it's, okay, yesterday you said you'd have this done by today. Is it done? Yes, it's done here. And the next thing I'm going to do is this. It's probably going to take me about 4 hours. I'll need that from you. Or no, I didn't get it done because I anticipated having this available to me and it was not. So it's very transparent, and nobody can be a slacker. You get things done. And that was a real generic explanation of Scrum. But so we hopefully are going to build it for Android, for iOS, for PlayStation, for Xbox, for Mac, for PC. And then we are going to market it. And then we are going to brand it. And then we are going to sell it. And I think those are 21st century skills. So we've got coding. We've got STEAM, because the science, certainly there's going to be science involved, because, the technology itself is a science, but depending upon the content of the game, depending upon the subject of the game, then the arts are no brainer in this whole thing, because there's going to be music and drawing, and the narrative is there. The mathematics of the programming are one thing, but there's also the mathematics of the game engine, and there's the mathematics of the whole concept of, well, if I'm going to have him do a platformer and he needs to get from here to here, what is that? What are those parameters? What do I need to? I don't have to tell you this. So it's all in there, but it's not just a game design course, and it's not just a STEM, which is the other trigger word now, or STEAM. It's business acumen. It's learning how to say things in a way that aren't going to offend people. It's learning how to listen to other ideas and maybe changing your mind. It's learning it's learning that no is a complete sentence. It's learning never to take no for an answer. No is never the answer. I feel like this is their opportunity to be exposed to a little taste of how the real world operates, because the biggest complaint people always have about stuff that's innovative in school or that's geared towards the individual is, well, the world's not going to do that for them. They're going to have to fit in. You can take that and argue till you're blue in the face. But I say, if I give kids a skill set that lights them up, they're never going to have to work a day in their life. They're going to know what they love, and they're going to find a way to do it and earn a living in the process. Is this career development? No, because the skills they're learning, I truly believe, can be applied to any field. There isn't an industry in the world today that doesn't require technology skills or programming, or doesn't use software, or so I hope that I'm onto something. I've spoken to a lot of the smart people I know. I spoke to Jesse Shell at great lengths, and this is the last thing I'll talk about. I have a big problem with this course. Can anybody anticipate what it is? What's my big problem? I can see the chat now, so.
I'm going to say your big problem is copyright of the game, ownership, and what happens with the money.
Nah, that's not a problem. We can do a DBA and form a corporation, and whatever they name their company, we can do that DBA and they'll have the ownership, or we can make it Creative Commons. But they did immediately say, who gets the money? And that I have to go to the board about and ask what our options are. But I said to the kids, well, if we are allowed to use the money as we see fit, then we'll have lots of choices to determine, do we want to donate it to a charity of our choice? Do we want to forge a scholarship? Do we want to reinvest it in better materials for the following year, or in a teacher's salary for this to continue in high school? I mean, the possibilities are endless, but if the board indeed says that there's too many negative legal ramifications for them to actually have access to the money, then we'll look at what options are available to us. Now, the very first design challenge they had, I have to tell you about that, and I have to tell you about Edge and Turk. But the very first design challenge they had, just to get them in the right mindset, was to design the hoodie for the team, because this is also going to be a team, right? So they had no problem saying that I want black zip-up hoodies. Okay. So design the logo. So everybody had to anonymously submit their idea for the logo. They could have a slogan or not. And I said, remember that you have constraints. You have a black background, and every additional color you use will cost more. So you'll be raising the price. And before I tell you how the results of that, I have to tell you what my one big problem was. Did anybody guess yet? Because it wasn't the.
Well, we had a teacher's salary. Some should go back to the course. Buying new textbooks. Is a problem with the kids or the administrators?
Problem with the kids. I'm reading it too, Lise. Now I can see it.
Okay, good.
Okay, so here's the problem. We got this all sorted out last year. And we sent home a flyer about the course and how to sign up for it. And we did one of those phone calls, all calls that went out to all the middle school families. And the next day I had 60 kids sign up. 3 girls.
Oh, wow.
3. I went down to my principal. I said, this is not acceptable. May I please go into the English classes? Because this was last May or June. And the 7th graders were the ones who were eligible to take this, because they would be 8th graders and they had room in their schedule for an elective. In New York, by 8th grade, you have completed your requirements for art and music. So if you don't, and Brian, my principal, was even cool enough that he made sure that kids who wanted to continue music could, and it didn't preempt Excalibur. So I said, can I have 10 minutes in each of the English classes? And they said, yeah. And I went in and I said, okay, I know that some of you don't like video games and some of you love them. So I want you to get in groups of 3 or 4 and tell each other what you do and what you don't like about video games, and go. And they have 5 minutes. And they did. And then I said, okay, come out of your groups, because I want this to be anonymous. So I don't want to hear what you said. I want to hear what you heard someone else say. What were some of the things that were said about what you don't like about video games. And the hands went flying up. And some of the things that were brought up were, anybody I know who plays video games, that's all they do. The stereotype Barbie doll with armor on is like so gross. I'm so tired of seeing that. They went on and on and on and on and on. And finally, one young lady said, she stood up and she said, I said this and I'll say it and I'll own it. There are no female heroes in video games. And I don't know about you, but I got chills. And it was like a perfect segue for what I wanted to say next. And so I said, okay, what are you going to do about that? Because guess what? And I gave them all the statistics about video game industry and how it's not going away and that they're going to have kids someday who are going to play video games. And did you want their kids playing video games where the female warrior's got cleavage down to her knees, but the male warrior has, armor up to here? Do you want that sexist mentality to exist in the games your kids play? No, of course not. Well, then what are you going to do about it? Because it's not going to change by you complaining about it. You got to get in it. And do you know that the most underrepresented group in the video game industry is women, and the second is not who you think it was? Who would you think it would be? Put your guesses in. The second most underrepresented group in in the game design. No, not old people. What minorities, Enrique? You're onto it. No, not Hispanics. Asians, yes, and Blacks. So I looked at the Asian kids in the room and I said, "What, are you all going to be brain surgeons? Come on, how about it? How about we take a look at this? If you want to change it, you've got to get in there and change it." And I said, and you guys who are already versed in it, deeply enmeshed in it, you better darn well welcome this new voice in your industry, because it's going to open up another whole market. You want women in there. You want their input because you want them to buy games. And it was like light bulbs were going off everywhere. And the next day I got 3 girls to sign up. 6 more boys signed up. So I spoke to Jesse Shell about this. I said, Jess, what am I going to do here? And he said, what's the name of the course? I said, EXCALIBUR. And I was all proud of it. And I told him what the acronym stood for. And he went, that's what your problem is. I said, why? And he said, you need the word story. Put the word story in the name and the girls will come. Interesting, right? So the rest of the website, I don't need to tell you how to dance around the website. The standards are there. There's a lot of stuff there about the different software programs. If the kids have a better design software program that they want to bring in, fine. Nothing is carved in stone. I told them they're designing the course as we go. You are the curriculum designers here. I'm giving you the skeleton or what I think, but if you've got better ideas or better resources, or bring them in. I'm also going to tap every smart person I know, Matt Barber, Lisa Dolly, to speak to my kids either in person or online to just share with them their experience and how it relates to this, whether it just be the business acumen. Lisa, look what you had to do with your product. How did you brand it? How did you market it? When was it right to sell it and get out? All that kind of stuff. I want people who are game designers to come in and challenge them on their design concepts, so that looks like it's been done before. That's just like Mario with a skirt on. Come on, let's go. Think of something more creative. All that kind of stuff. I'm loving the conversations that are going on. Anyway, any input you can give me. I mean, I told you in the beginning, this is for me, not you. If you have suggestions, if I said something tonight that you went, oh, that's not smart. My district is amazing. They gave me $2,000 worth of books. So I went online and ordered all the Tracy Fulton, Jesse Shell, and books on branding and marketing, and books on Unity, and books on Blender. And I've got a whole beautiful library over there. my boss bought me an Xbox One S and a PlayStation 4 Pro, and I'm getting a bunch of VR stuff because that's another possibility. They might want to design a game for VR. I don't know. Please check back with me. This could be a bust, or this could be the next coming. I don't know. But I think that's the beauty of it. I don't know. I have really smart friends who teach this, Matt being one of them. Steve Isaacs is, I think I stole half of his curriculum. It's on the website. I think I gave him attribution. I'm pretty sure. Leah, good old Lucas Gillespie from years and years ago down in North Carolina is really the impetus for this, because before he was doing his big thrust now is gamified professional development. But before he did that in his new district, he was, WoW in school was pretty much leveled off and settled and in place. And his next thing was going to be Saga, which was Story and Gaming Academy, which was going to be kids playing games, looking at the narratives.
That's cool.
And that was part of the seed that became Excalibur for me. I always like to give credit where it's due, because, Lucas basically got me on this whole wonderful journey. So ask me some questions, talk to each other. We do have some time. Please tell me we have some time.
We're so over time. It's
oh my God, I did it again. I told you I can't say hello.
But I do want to, we haven't had questions pop up yet. So if anybody has questions, go ahead and put those in.
I'm not going anywhere. So Lisa, I don't know if you have.
I have a comment. Did you know, okay, the model that you're using where you have students dig in, they're critical, then they move into workshop, and then they go into the company, is the same model that we're using in our master's program at Mighty.
No, I didn't know that.
It's the same program. And so I think what's happening is
people think alike, right?
No, I think what's happening is the technologies have evolved to the point, because everybody can become a producer, creator, builder. It lends itself naturally to, I want to create and produce, and I want to publish my work. I want to share my work and maybe be entrepreneurial with it. Why not?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm so fascinated how you did this at a middle school level. It's just really powerful.
Well, that's where I have to turn around and give credit to my boss, Brian, because Brian has been my champion since Second Life days. He's been with me all along. He's in my guild in World of Warcraft. I mean, come on. The guy gets it, and I'm very lucky to have that. I didn't have to do a hard sell. But I've got all the resources you need if you are indeed someone who has to do the hard sell. And I know I'm going to volunteer Matt, and I'm going to volunteer Steve, because they're the kind of people that do this. But those of us who are a little bit further down the road than you, who are pretty, up to here in it, I always, always, always offer my time to people who maybe need me to speak to their administrator, or maybe they need me to speak to the tech department, or maybe.
Oh, you're so great, Peggy.
No, I'm not great. I just believe in this and I want it for kids,
I know you're passionate. We do have questions popping up. I've been asked, how many girls do you have in now? 6 out of 60?
3.
3 out of how many?
My big passionate discourse didn't yield any more girls. But the good news, here's
we've run those camps, Teen Game Lab, summer camp, and the same kind of percentages, lower amount of girls versus boys. And I'm not sure what's causing it.
I'm going to talk to Connie too, because she said Constance Steinkuhler, she said she has some ideas. But I want to show you, this was what I wanted to come back to. So I told you we had that first design challenge about designing the hoodie.
Yeah.
And you see my desktop now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Chrome, I need a new window. Bear with me 1 second, folks. Talk amongst yourselves. Peggy, we are so over. Of course you are. File, new window. All right, and come over here. And I'm going into my drive to show you some of the designs and the winning design. And so is this, oh, I'm in the wrong thing again. So sorry. I have, I'm using a student's login because mine doesn't work. Here we go. So the Burning Man pictures. Here's the recent. Here's some of the pictures. I'm not going to make a bunch of them big, but they basically looked like things like this. I'll make this big. Can you see that?
Yeah. What does it say underneath?
It says Excalibur, and it's got a shield and 2 swords with a just press play button,
Yeah, we are the game. Oh, is that the hoodie that everybody made?
And the slogan that they put in was, "We are the game changers." So
really cute.
Wait a minute. Let me show you the better ones. And I'm only going to show you. Oh, there we are at Wine Fair. There's me and Steve Isaacs. And let's all go through my pictures now. Recent. Here they are. Then there was this one, which I thought was cool. I think I can make it bigger if I do that. Hold on. That. And that. Maybe, yeah, that. So that was the Excalibur sword in the water, because Excalibur was not the sword in the stone. Excalibur was the sword that the Lady of the Lake pushed out. And then there was like a barcode. So I thought that was cool. And then the one that actually won, this is why I love what I do, was this one. And the person that did it full color like this.
Wow.
It says Excalibur. It's got the sword, the flames, and we are the game changers. But then they also contributed one color, 2 color. And while in the process of voting, they ultimately, this got 47 votes. This is how much all the kids liked it, and they were anonymous. This was one of the girls. I was so gratified. And it's like I have 2 classes every other day. Like I have one class on AB days and another class on BC days.
Right.
This girl is the only girl in her class. The other class has, there's 4 girls. The other class has 3. This girl is the only girl, and she was so out of here. She was dropping out. I begged her to stay, and then she won the design challenge. That's when you go. But I looked at it, and it looked good, all blue. Blue is the suffering color, this baby blue. And it looked good with blue and yellow. But I said, you know what? The PTA is buying them. We're going to pay $10, $12 for them. Whatever the additional cost is between the 1 color and the 3, I will pay, because that's how that should look. So,
yeah, it's really cool.
Anybody who wants one, let me know what size, and I'll find out what the price is. I think it's going to be like $12, $15.
Enrique asked, what do you think the future is for games in the classroom?
Okay, that's a whole webinar, but I'll try to be succinct. For playing games in the classroom, Enrique? I'm scrolling down. I'm only seeing some of the.
Yeah. For using games.
For using games. So it's using games as a resource, a learning tool, like instead of a textbook or an overhead or something. What do I think the future is? I think the future is, as it should be, in my opinion, that games will be one of many things in a teacher's toolbox, but that they will become widespread acceptable. Teachers won't have to be clandestine about it or fight for the right to have, an MMO in their room, and the equipment and the port unblocked and all that stuff. But also, I think as those barriers are surmounted, I think the games that start to be developed are going to be unquestionably appropriate for education and still sexy enough to keep a kid's interest. Like I left Filament.
That's a dream. That's a dream day. I would love to see that day.
It is a dream, but wait. I'm left feeling it. 50 or 60 young people working there, and at the big meeting, and there was cake. The cake was another one. And the big go-away meeting, I said, look, I understand now. You've taught me so much about why you're not back here making World of Warcraft, or why you're not back here, making Red Dead Redemption. I get it. The time and energy and the resource to go into that would negate anything else that's putting bread and butter on the table.
Right.
But do a Google 20. I don't care if it takes you 10 years, make the big game. And I saw Dan White's face, literally the blood drained, and the other Dan, the other owner. And I saw like 35, 40 of the young people go, see? So, Dan still speaks to me, but so they're thinking that already. They're thinking that. They know it has to happen. They know that they can't put a glorified interactive worksheet in front of kids, call it a game, and expect
Chris Dede called it the chocolate-covered broccoli.
Was that his? Was that Chris's? Yeah.
That was his.
Yeah. I think that, too, games is not the silver bullet. Let's find other stuff. Let's think Star Trek. Let's go into the holodeck. I want to go see ancient Rome. Okay, boop, program it in, and you go. Let's work on that stuff too. And the VR is a step in that direction. Yeah. But let's not just games are great. I love games. I love play. I think doesn't have to be a video game. One of my best projects with my 6th graders in the humanities is build a board game about this topic. And they've been really cool games. But it's not just a play, and it's not just the creative juices. It's the ownership. It's the taking their own learning by the horns and saying, this is how I learn. And this is, hopefully someday they'll get to, and this is what I want to learn. Because they're not even doing that in university. Half of the liberal arts colleges, are you're basically going in there, you have to take senior seminar, you have to take, learn how to write. Yeah. Who really gets to do what they want to do? The kids that go into trade schools. Yeah. The kids that go in to become air conditioner guys or electricians or beauty school dropouts, or they've chosen a field and they're learning the craft they need for that field, and they're learning it as an apprentice. They're learning it in a experiential manner, and they will write their own ticket. They will work when they want to work, for whom they want to work, or independently. And we're always going to need our haircut. And we're always going to need our toilet bowls unclogged and our air conditioners fixed and our refrigerators running and our cars working. But we poo-poo that in academia. Oh, they're going to a community college or they're going to a trade school, and they laugh all the way to the bank.
Can I just say I don't poo-poo it for the record? Can I just put that on the record?
Well, I'm speaking generics, not marvelous, unique, wonderful.
I have 2 more questions for you.
I want to come back.
I have 2 more questions for you, and then it's time for us to wrap up.
Those are perfect words.
Almost at 7. What books/resources, and you went over some books already, but what resources would you recommend for an educator new to games-based learning?
What level? What are the ages of the children you serve? Or is it just for your own edification?
I think it's for, let's say, that's Beatrix. She's a graduate student learning about games-based learning, hoping to implement it with students in the future.
What I would recommend is that you, start to play.
Have to play.
Play something from every genre. Play socially. So join a guild in World of Warcraft. Actually, Cognitive Dissonance, the teacher guild on the Alliance side, is kind of quiet, but there's a sister guild on the Horde side called Inevitable Betrayal that are very active. All educators don't mind idiot questions. They're great. But get that whole thing. Within 20 minutes of playing World of Warcraft, I went, of course they'd rather do this. Why wouldn't they? You know, it all made sense to me finally. But do it with your teacher lens on. Don't go in there and go, oh, I'm afraid to ask questions. I don't want to look dumb. You know, go in there with your teacher lens and think about where the learning is. You'll see it. Identify the learning. Because what these beautiful MMOs can do is they've mastered the art of teaching you how to play as you play.
Yeah, they really have. It's an art form and they've got it down.
I can still hear you. I'm just walking over to the library to grab some things to show you. You can keep talking.
All right. Well, I have one final question from Andy, who asked, do you feel that education is warming up to games in the classroom for learning?
Boy, I'm not even bringing any books back now with that question. Do I feel education is warming up?
Yep. So maybe are people becoming more receptive
in the United
to the idea
States
of games-based learning?
In the United States?
Well, we could start there.
Here's the dilemma. There's still such extreme have-nots in the US that some people are like, I just want them to read and have breakfast.
Yeah.
May not be able to see that this game may be just the ticket to have them read. What's interesting to me is even in these real poverty areas where, 98% of the kids are eligible for free and reduced lunch, et cetera, they still come in with their really cool Nike sneakers and their phones. So if we start harnessing that power of the iOS and the Android games and the iOS and the Android education stuff, make it cool. That might be a step, because you have to remember the United States is such a vast, extremely different set of cultures, of abilities, of ethnic backgrounds, of financial stratus, that you can't really give a generic answer for anything. Like when I was in New Zealand and I read, please read it. I read the New Zealand, it was their national curriculum. It was a 3-page document and I wept with the beauty of it. And I looked at these people at CORE, is the name of the organization, and I said, how can we, she said, we're a tiny little country. You're 50 states and huge. Of course you can't agree on anything. But that's the whole thing. I mean, you can get into the politics of it. Should it all go blow up the national thing, all go back to the state? Should we blow up the state, all go back to the village? But then, this village over here who are compromised, economically compromised, are they going to have access to the same resources and things that the mini mansion Porsche drivers over here have? So, we understand why the United States has done what they did. They're looking for equity. They're blowing it, but I don't have the answer to that one. Diane Ravitch, speak to her. But the poverty thing is what, that's the wall we keep hitting. You're not going to tell a school that's poverty stricken to go get an Xbox in your classroom. Although the kids probably have them at home. They fell off a truck. So if you're talking about games, they have to become accessible. Now, the cool thing is when Filament designed the iCivic suite for Sandra Day O'Connor, that was her dream child. She got up on stage for those of you who didn't see it, at Games for Change some years back. She had just retired from the Supreme Court. And she said, if you ever told me I'd be talking about video games on stage, I'd say you were nuts. But I have a bunch of grandchildren and they love video games. They seem to be very adept with them, but they don't know anything about the US government. So I thought maybe we could use this game as the vehicle to teach them about the government. And then she went to the best. She went to Jim G and the designers at Arizona State. And then they went and got Filament to build it and made it Creative Commons licensed. So they're on Brain Pop now. And Brain Pop, I hope you're listening, Brain Pop, because Brain Pop is situated to be the one. Brain Pop is situated because they're already in schools. Teachers already trust them. They should build the game because teachers will accept it. It's from Brain Pop.
Brain Pop's pretty good.
Moby wouldn't lie to me. You know, Moby wouldn't lie. So, you know, I mention that all the time, but they say, well, we're not just in the game business, you know, we movies and this. But you know what? You know, where's all that textbook money going to go? The publishing companies don't know what to do. They're falling over themselves, making these interactive online textbooks that are like, and you know, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Spawn of Satan, Pearson. I'm not opinionated, but I mean, why don't they talk to teachers? You know, why don't they talk to students? You know, this is an industry. This is a big business, and it's the only business on the planet of which I'm aware that doesn't say to its constituents or its customer students, how can we better serve you? What do you need? How shall we do this for you? What would you like? Every other company does that. They talk to their customers. How are we doing? How can we help you? How can we serve you? What do you need? How could our product be better?
Peggy, I need to thank you for your passion. I think you're exploring and identifying solutions to the very problem that you're exposing.
Yeah, well, I'm just doing it. And
it will take a generation. You do understand that, right? You're dealing with the generation that will eventually change it all. I do believe. And
but no, don't be too sure, because Marianne Malmstrom will tell you, you know, no clue kid. She'll tell you when she was teaching at, she's the one who's now in New Zealand having the best school in the world. But when she was at the Elizabeth Morrow School, it was the kids, a good percentage of the kids who said, no, video games don't belong in school.
Because they don't see the connection.
Schools for learning, you know, schools for, you know, they're on that rigor, grit. I got to get into the right college. You know, I got to get the right, you know, the whole, you know, there's the great American lie. Move into the right neighborhood so you get into the right preschool, so you get into the right prep school, so you get the advanced placement courses, so you get the right little corner window job and the Porsche and the mini mansion. You wake up at 40 and you're miserable and you don't know why, because nobody ever went, hey, what's your passion? Well, what gets you really excited?
What's your passion? What are you passionate about? It's the main thing I want to know.
I said there should be a course called Passion Points, and in fact, no clue, Marianne does a unit called.
I love that. Can you do me a huge favor? Do you mind typing in your email address for anybody that wants to contact you now or in the future, if they're viewing this webinar in the future, to make contact with you? And thank you to everybody who was in our audience now and in the future for engaging. Peggy, I could talk all night with you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Matt Barber. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Matt.
I think I'm past that point. Okay.
Hey, that's I didn't see you log in. Good to see you.
This is school. They haven't changed the email yet.
Thank you, Peggy.
Oh, Lisa, for you, anything. You were such
I owe you. I owe everybody in the tribe a million favors. You guys are just amazing. You're my inspiration. You're what keeps me. You guys give me hope that there's hope. Sure. Talk about the tribe.
No, did Matt? Is Matt still here?
Let me look.
In the second edition of his book, Game Design in the Classroom, I think is the name of it.
No, he's gone.
Well, it's a real practical book. It's a real step by step, well written, good book. And he, you know, threw in a little Steve Isaacs in the first version, but the second version was after we all did like 5 conferences in a row together, and I've always referred to it as my tribe. And he said, "Can I use that to try?" I said, "Yeah." So, you know, he does this whole beginning of the book talking about the tribe and you know, what is traditionally a tribe all about, and what is this tribe all about? And then we actually now have a forum called the Tribe
on Facebook.
Yep, that I mean, it's membership only, but it's not elitist. You know, if you want to get in, just ask somebody who's in there to get you in, because it started out being, you know, only teachers who are doing game design already that can feed off each other, and then like the next thing we knew, everybody and their uncle was in there, so that's fine, you know.
Well, I know I got my invitation to come. I felt welcomed back into the people that I knew but had lost contact with, because I went out into the corporate world.
Yeah,
for 4 years, right? And so it felt like a welcome home.
Yeah, well, we were very glad to see you there.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you.
So there's Brian. Brian, I didn't know you realized you were here. Yes, Brian said we need to tout it as it is a place for people who are steeped in game design and gameful learning and practices of that nature. So we have a lot of very, the higher ups, well-established visionaries in the field, but we also have practitioners who are new at it. But in other words, this isn't the place for Build a Better PowerPoint. This is the place for I want to eat, breathe, you know, games.
I want to live games and teach games.
Yeah, and we are working on how to further novices, how to point them in the right direction, point them to the right resources. But this is also a place where someone who's been at it for a while, like Braun or myself, can talk to another expert. You know, like I can tap Jim G and say, hey, I only have 3 girls. What can I do? You know, I asked that question of Jesse in person at a conference, but you know, initially it was supposed to be just for that purpose, and you know, then everybody wanted their friends and blah blah blah, and it was, but you know, we can still rein it in and say you are welcome here as long as you confine your conversation to questions and comments pertaining to the practice of gameful learning. Did I say that well, Braun, or do you want to add anything to that, my friend?
She's added a little bit.
That's the 3rd musketeer, by the way. It's Marianne and Braun and myself. We are girls gone wild, but now we're in 3 different countries.
I was just an audience member watching the movie. No, a fan. I was a fan of the 3 Musketeers.
But you also provided our resources for us. You fed us, and you said stay at my house.
Yeah. You know, I was your biggest fan. You know. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I love you. I really want to see you guys soon at a conference. I need it.
Thank you, Enrique, and everyone else who was able to get here. Brian, I need to talk to you soon about that issue we discussed about Arizona State. If you bye, my Aussie friend. Bye, my future friend.
Bye, Braun. Good night, Enrique. Good night, everybody that was with us. And I'll talk to you soon.
No, Lisa, hold on for 1 second after you sign them out. I'm going to just ask you one thing.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.
Tanya,
and
thank
for
you.
joining
Tanya,
us.
my daughter's name is Tara Gavin. My daughter.